So many of you have asked about cleaning parts, and I know that I show you in some of my videos how I clean parts, but I thought today I would try to maybe go a little bit more into detail for you. All these parts, most of them, have been through the ultrasonic cleaner at this point. And I'm going to make sure you see how I do that. I will also explain what you would do if you didn't have an ultrasonic cleaner. So let's check that out first. Here is my typical setup at my kitchen sink with my ultrasonic cleaner and all of my favorite little tools that I use as I go. I like to mix my Krug cutter at about 50-50 ratio with water. I just find that works best for me. In the ultrasonic cleaner, the parts typically only need to run about 3 minutes. And the key here is to clean them and then rinse them really well and finally dry them very well. That is so important to stop any rust from forming. However, if it does, we will deal with that a little bit later in the video. You can dry parts with a hairdryer, but some of the smaller ones, you'll struggle actually keeping them from blowing away. So I don't recommend trying that on the little tiny parts. I really appreciate the little pointy Q-tips when I'm trying to clean out screw holes and little nooks and crannies in the parts. It really helps me make sure that I'm getting all the water out. Water equals rust, and even though we won't avoid it entirely, you would really regret not drying your parts as soon as you're done cleaning them. As I clean and dry this 1/2 of the motor housing for the Featherweight 221 I'm working on, I want to talk to you about painted parts. So that would include the hand wheel, the motor housings, even the number dial on your tension assembly, or the stitch indicator plate. The finishes and the paints on those parts do not tolerate most cleaners. I always inspect the integrity of the finish, and if it's in very, very good condition, I may use a little bit of Dawn dish soap on it, like I did on this bottom half of the motor housing. And here you can see a little bit of the Dawn dish soap did not hurt the finish on this motor housing at all. However, if it were in really bad shape and the clear coat was compromised, I would have never used any type of cleaner on it, not even something as gentle as the Dawn dish soap. I also wash off the bottom covers, but I'll just let you know now, the glue residue from when they originally attached the felt drip pads in the bottom, you're never going to get all of that off. So just wash the outside, run a little soapy water over the inside where that residue is, and call it a day. Here is just another example of how well the ultrasonic cleaner and Krug cutter work together to clean some of these stainless steel parts. It's amazing how different they look when they come out of the cleaner. These two parts from the tension assembly will not go in the ultrasonic cleaner. They will just have some running water and maybe a little bit of dish soap, and that's it. The rest of the parts from the tension assembly are fine to go into the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm almost finished cleaning the parts with the Krug cutter and water, and you can see how dirty this water has gotten. These last few parts are particularly dirty, and it's really cool to see how they come out so clean and shiny. If you were doing this at home and you did not have an ultrasonic cleaner, you would simply mix a cleaning solution in a container and then just soak your parts inside the container. Swirl the solution around from time to time, but give it more like 10 or 15 minutes before you wait to take the parts out. Old toothbrushes or any other type of little cleaning brush work great to help scrub away any of that extra grime. You do not have to have the ultrasonic cleaner to clean the parts. I only use one because I clean so many of them. So what do I do after that step? Well, first, you need something like this. I want you to take a good look at this bottle. The Must for Rust by Krug Cutter is the best rust remover I personally have ever used. I slowed down this portion of the video so you could get a good look. Now, on to the rest of the things we'll be using. In this bowl, I have 91% isopropyl alcohol, and I'm going to be very cautious where I put it, but it's going to help me with any of the last little bits of grime and stuff that the ultrasonic cleaner didn't get for whatever reason. I want to show you this. This is the nose plate to a machine, and actually this machine is for a customer, it's not mine. I put this in the ultrasonic cleaner, and I wish I would have taken a video of the crud just bubbling off of this. It is beautiful. I have not put any metal polish or anything on this, and I'm not going to. This textured surface, I don't want to get anything stuck in that texture that I can't get out. This is beautiful the way it is. The backs, that's natural. Don't worry about that discoloration. It's not rust. It's not going to do anything to the piece. So this is done, and a lot of the pieces that I cleaned, they're done. They won't need any touch up, but I do go over them one by one just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Here I have a piece of very fine sandpaper. This is actually 3000 grit, and I have some lower grits as well, but I'll start with this. If I need to pull out something a little bit rougher, I will, but hopefully I don't need to. A little piece of a Scotch-Brite pad. I'm going to use this mostly on the hand wheel, and I just need a little piece, and I'll show you how I do that. Q-tips, lots of them. I'll use all of these and more. Round ones, pointy ones. I love the pointy ones for some of those tiny little spots and for screw holes and things like that. Definitely those. My rubber honing stick from the Featherweight shop comes in handy. Little paintbrush. Sometimes I use this to apply the rust remover, just to get in places that are harder to reach. This is sewing machine oil, and I will apply it with a brush, or sometimes I will apply it with a rag. So that would be on a part like this. I haven't finished cleaning this one. I have a little bit of grime here. It's sort of a green color since I ran it through the cleaner. And so what I would be doing first is taking a little bit of my rust remover, just going over that. Once I have it all off, I've already done this portion here, I would take my rag, and I just find it's easier to apply it this way than using a brush because it's a bigger piece. And I'm just going to oil down these parts, and they'll sit this way until I get to actually reinstalling them back into the machine. But I've cleaned the rust off if there was any, and now I'm just making sure that no new rust forms, which it shouldn't, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And of course, if I want to, I can use my brush to oil up these little points where the centers are going to go, and down into the little holes where the feed dogs will eventually screw in. So just like that. These, when they're done, I set them aside until I'm ready to put them back on the machine. So this is the feed connecting rod, and I thought maybe I can kind of show you the difference. This is how it's starting out. I did run this through the ultrasonic cleaner. And so what I want to look for now is down in these holes where the screws are going to go, that's going to put the little top cover of the feed connecting rod on. I'm going to check those for rust. There's not a lot of obvious rust here, but if I run my Q-tip over this, do you see that? It actually changed color. So I'm just going to get all those points like that along the edge here. This end. So you can see how this is sort of a multi-step process. So something like the needle plate isn't going to need rust remover or really anything. Could you polish this? You could. The only time I'll ever get out rust remover on a needle plate is when I have a little bit of rust right here because the needle strikes are so bad that it's chipped away this chrome plating and caused it to rust. But in this case, I'm just going to polish it up with a microfiber cloth and call it a day. It's in great shape. I don't need to do anything to it. The feed dogs usually need a little bit more attention. You can pick out some of that packed in lint with the dental pick. And then if you need to, just go over them with the rust remover and make sure you get in all the little nooks and crannies and get out any rust that you see. The little rubber honing stick from the featherweight shop is perfect for removing any little bits of discoloration if that really bothers you to see it there. And on I go over every single part, every single screw, making sure I didn't miss anything, inspecting them for damage and rust. I'll go over every single one of them. Let's talk about the needle bar next. So here's my needle bar. If you decide to use sandpaper on something like this, you want to not be so aggressive that you remove your part numbers, this little line, or these markings up at the top that help you set the height of your needle bar and check the timing of the hook. This is a high grit sandpaper that I've dipped in oil first, and then the direction that I rub the needle bar is probably the most important. You want to go around the needle bar with the sandpaper. You do not want to rub up and down. And just be mindful of all your little markings. You don't want to remove them because you're going to need them for later. Then just wipe it all down and you should have a nice and shiny needle bar. And the process will be exactly the same for the presser bar too. The hand wheel. What I want to do is actually clean out inside the hand wheel where it's going to sit on the end of the shaft. I want it to spin freely. If it's cruddy, the interior is really rough, it's going to catch. So what do? You're going to get dirty when you do this, just a fair warning. I'm taking my Scotch-Brite pad, I'm dipping it in a little bit of oil, and I have a piece that's just big enough that I can fit my finger up inside that hole, and I'm pressing down on the Scotch-Brite pad, and I'm just spinning, and I'm going to go around and around doing this. I'm going to do that end and this end, and the oil just sort of helps move stuff around. It also keeps the dust down, and just wipe it clean. See, that's coming off up inside. And I might go over this twice just to make sure I got it really well. But that's how I clean out the inside of the hand wheel. Now, there are some electrical parts that you're not going to be able to clean in your cleaners. The light switch would be one of them. So this one, I'm actually going to be taking this wire off and putting a new one on. But I still need to clean this. Reg, rubbing alcohol, and it's okay to get rubbing alcohol on this plastic part. Now, as far as getting in the grooves here, you do want them to be clean because you're going to be screwing that little nut down on at the end, and if it's dirty and gross, you're not going to be able to screw the nut down. This rag is damp from rubbing alcohol. It's not saturated. Just going to go over it and wipe it down. And there was so little it was able to get the crud off, but this isn't wet. And again, I'm taking this off. So that's kind of how you would deal with some of your electrical parts. This you're only going to polish. Same is true with your tension assembly. I ran these in the sink and dried them. Now I'll polish, and that's going to be done with a Q-tip and just getting in there and working it in all the crevices and then getting the polish off. And these will look great. Bobbin winder. So when I was cleaning it, I was thinking about this part. So these are all kind of made differently. Some of them are, this one looks painted. Some of them don't look painted, but they're still black. Don't get alcohol on those. I would just wipe them down. I've had parts that are just a black color, but they don't look painted. It's like they dyed them somehow, or it's a process of when they make them that they turn black. I don't know. I'm not a metallurgist, but I've had some of those black parts where it's discolored with alcohol. So you really just want to clean this with warm water and, brush it off, sewing machine oil if you want, and then polish it if it needs it. But be careful with that. Same with this. I just ran it under some water, wiped it down really good. I may put some rust remover here in the bobbin winder, make sure there's no rust, and then add my oil back in here, polish this if I want, but no alcohol. For this part of the electrical, your actual plug, you can get alcohol on the Bakelite. You can also polish this with the cleaner wax and it will come out amazing. Do not get alcohol on these painted dots. They will come off. Now, if you do by accident, don't worry. It still says 1, 2, 3. You'll be able to see that. They're just color coded and it's kind of nice to have that. So alcohol, probably not so much unless you're using a Q-tip and you can run it around the inside and sort of clean that out. Even here, just run it around, but do not put alcohol there. It will take the paint off. I think that about covers it when it comes to cleaning parts. What do? I use an ultrasonic cleaner with water and Krug cutter. Typically about a 50-50 mix. Ultrasonic cleaner, most of my parts run for 3 minutes or less, and they are as clean as I like them to be. If I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, you want maybe a small dish for the smaller parts and a bigger one for your longer ones, like your needle bar and stuff like that. 50-50, water and Krug cutter, pop them in there, let them soak for a couple minutes, move the liquid around the parts. That helps so much. It's not an ultrasonic cleaner, but it's essentially doing sort of what an ultrasonic cleaner would do. It's moving that liquid around. Then toothbrush, brush the parts, maybe soak them again, then you take them out, you rinse them off, dry them off, you have clean parts. I'm going to finish inspecting all these parts, and in the next video I will show you how I polish the painted parts.